You gotta get this in here. A few things I want to do first though is I'm going to take all the plastic intake off and I'm going to port polish that as best I can, you know, it being plastic. Shouldn't take long. And then on the port matched intake, polish all this up. You can see these have been ported here to make room for the bridge port. So I'm going to come in here with just some tools, get these all port polished. You can see you get imperfections here in the casting, so I'm going to get rid of all this. The real question is, what sort of power is that worth on one of these engines? Being optimistic, 2, maybe 3 horsepower. Ultimately, it's a low cc naturally aspirated engine, so you're never going to get great power from polishing them. But also it should just allow the air to flow a little quicker at the top end, meaning it just revs a little cleaner right at the top, even though it's not going to give you too much power benefit.
Then the boys showed up and things went downhill pretty quickly.
Okay. Fuck's happening here?
Oh, you fucking start.
I mean, if it was rock up and invited, it's like looking after like...
Oh, you fucking know that you...
That's for the meeting, I reckon we can take it.
I know, you're fucking big now.
Basically a flamethrower, isn't it? You might have ripped your tyre off.
Put the tyre strap off the rim.
What have you got to see for yourself?
Where's the pump?
Okay, so I've got all the plastics off, but it doesn't really look like it's going to need a lot of porting. Like I see one junction that's going to potentially need it. You've got a bit of a ridge here. It's just kind of a flat spot. So I'm going to smooth that out here and just clean it, because that's a real sharp edge there. I'm just going to take that off, just so as the air flows around this corner, it has a smoother journey to take. That's the intake manifold all done. It's time to yank all the ancillaries off this and get the engine out, and then transfer them all onto the new engine. Easy as that. I've got the coolant lines disconnected, I've got the oil lines disconnected, and I've got the engine harness disconnected. I've already been underneath, disconnected the wiring loom for the starter motor and the gearbox, so the engine is effectively disconnected from the body now. The only thing holding it in place is the engine mounts and the bell housing bolts. So we're going to chuck the crane on it, then I'm going to get underneath, remove all those things, and get the engine pulled.
Fuck, I knew that was going to work. Not a stud sticking out of that block.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that on both sides.
Mold fit everything. Yeah. What do you do? I feel this job will be a lot easier once you've unbolted the engine and gearbox. Yeah, probably. I reckon that's probably one of the first steps, I'd say. First step of removing engine. Separate engine from the rest of the car. Yeah. Don't just strap a crane to it and start trying to drag it out of there like.
We should have plenty more movement now.
It comes forward.
So if you just start, you want to go up basically. You've got the power steering, the steering mount and stuff. Okay, so we've got the engine out and we've got the new engine sat right next to it. So the next job is to remove all the wiring loom, all the ancillaries, my front pulleys, the coils, everything else, and fit it to the new engine. Once it's all fitted and assembled and I'm happy everything's in place where it should be, we then do the reverse process. The new engine goes into the engine bay. Okay, I'm just swapping over all these engine components, and what I thought I'd do is, for those of you that aren't super familiar with the Renesis engine and the Rotary engine, is just show you through the oiling and fueling system. So what you have here is called an oil metering pump, and what this basically does is squirt oil up through these 4 clear pipes up across the top here, and then you have 2 injectors on each rotor. On the newer R3 engines, you actually have a 3rd oil injector in the middle. As for the fueling, you have 2 red Denso 550cc injectors here. 1 per rotor, so 550 on one side, 550 on the other side, for a total of 1100 cc's of fuel injection straight into the rotors. Then, as you saw on the intake manifold when I was porting it, you have 4 more yellow 450cc Denso injectors on the intake manifold that will mix fuel and air as it tumbles down into the intake ports across here. Is all this porting worth it? Well, that depends. There's no point you taking your manifolds off to port them for no reason. But if you've got the engine out, or you've just rebuilt it, or you're giving it a freshen up, and these parts are off anyway, then flip a coin. Do you want to put several hours into something that's going to give you a couple of horsepower, or not? It's one of those. Okay, that's the manifold all ported up. I can't actually fit it because I've blown through the old exhaust gasket. So I bought a new one through Mazda, OEM exhaust gasket. It'll be here Wednesday, so we'll fit the manifold then. We can, however, crack on with the intake manifold. I'll give you a little more explanation here on the intake and the difference between a 4-port and a 6-port. So when you're just cruising around, the SSV isn't engaged. The SSV is basically like a VTEC for a rotary engine. So anything below 7,500 RPM, you're operating on 4 ports. Then, when you get to 7,500 RPM, the SSV opens, which does this, and opens up the tertiary ports, which are the 3rd ports here. These are the ones that have been gapped to make room for the bridge port. So at 7,500 RPM, you get, I don't know, maybe 30–40% more air come through your intake, and that's why you get that huge jump in power after 7,500 RPM. Point to note, when you come to fit the motor on the back of the gear for that SSV, it's important that you make sure this is turned fully clockwise. So turning it that way is opening the SSV, turning it this way is closing. So that's the SSV fully closed. And then the SSV motor should, like that, clip straight onto it. And here we are, old engine,
and the new engine fully assembled and good to go. Unfortunately, I do require several bits that I've ordered. A couple of oil filters, a couple of gallons of cheap oil, a gasket for the manifold. I've had to order an oil pressure sender because I've damaged mine. I've ordered a magnetic sump plug, a few other bits and bobs. Unfortunately, it's holiday season, so that's all going to take probably a week to get here. So we're going to leave this video where it is. Join us for the next one where I'll just be finishing the install on this, getting it running, heat cycling it a couple of times, and trying my best to break it in before our first track day in just a couple of weeks. As ever, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.